Yes, friends. Hello! A few weeks ago, I took a deep dive into the origins of a scrappy little nerdy horror punk group straight out of a depressing neighborhood in New Jersey known as My Chemical Romance and their introduction to the world, the dark, bursting with rough around the edges punk rock energy 2002 debut full-length record I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love, and a good time was had by all. Today, I've decided to take a step further into the history of these jet black emo sweethearts and take a look at the period in which New Jersey's hometown horror heroes signed to a major label, exploded in popularity, rising to the top of the ranks of the burgeoning 2000s emo movement, and released a sophomore full-length which spawned several mainstream radio and MTV hits, causing the record to go platinum with sales of 1 million copies in just over a year, and in the grand scheme of things solidified its place as basically the Nevermind of the emo movement. The year was 2004, and My Chemical Romance proved to the world that greasy-haired emos with black nail polish and little skinny red ties could do a lot more than just sitting in their mother's house in New Jersey reading comic books and sinking further and further into dissociative depression. They proved that they could make art that connects with millions, saves countless of lives, and gives sad, out-of-place, misfit teenagers all across the world a beacon of light and hope to hold on to.
In the middle of a gunfight, in the center of a restaurant, they say, come with your arms raised high.
The concept for the record, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, was the story of a man and a woman who are separated by death in a gunfight. And he goes to hell only to realize by the devil telling him that she's still alive. The devil says, you could be with her again if you bring me the souls of 1,000 evil men. And so he hands him a gun and he says, I'll go do it. That was the idea behind the concept. The record ended up being much more about loss in real life than anything. So I would say it's a good split. When I was a kid, I realized that everybody dies. I realized that one day I wouldn't have my parents, I wouldn't have anybody else, and I'd probably end up alone, and I'd even die. And I think I was like 8, and I freaked out about it for like a good 3 years. Not until I became a teenager did I even start to accept it. I never really felt death super close either until my grandma had passed away. But in the end, I think I started to see some kind of beauty or release in death, and I think that made it even more so to become death-obsessed.
Hello! My name, yet again, is the Cozy Representative, and today we will be exploring My Chemical Romance's legendary Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge era. Let's go! Hey, friends, real quick before we continue, a couple things. First, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who supports me over on my Patreon. If you are interested in some bonus content, or if you want a way to get me to do a video review of your band, or if you simply just want to help out this channel even further, there is a link in the description of this video to sign up to my Patreon. It's a super big help, so thank you to anybody who is a member over there. Also, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Mikie Mayo. Mikie Mayo is a fantastic musician as well as a close personal friend of mine who makes awesome music, a lot of times of the hyperpop genre, but Mikie also makes music under a variety of different genres too. A lot of great songs. Real quick, check out some of Mikie Mayo's songs.
Going 180 into 60, what doesn't save me, probably gonna kill me, darling. To stay home is where the heart is, and I guess my home is dearly departed. Spaceship eyes, blood red skies, you can't run but you can dance all night. Gossip on the floor, baby tell me that I'm yours.
If you want a new artist to listen to and want to support some cool underground music that is Cozy approved, look up Mikie Mayo on Spotify, check out the hot jams. Also, make sure to go follow Mikey over on Instagram to stay in the loop, instagram.com/Mikie Mayo. And with that, onwards to the MCR goodness. Thanks, guys. So, picking back from right where we left off in the MCR story, the band was on the road touring hard in support of their first record, like I said, their 2002 debut through indie label Eyeball Records, I Brought You My Bullets. Although the band was very small and relatively unknown outside of the tight-knit local New Jersey music scene upon the release of the record, the 5 MCR dudes were absolutely committed to what they were doing and stopped at nothing to hit the road touring as hard as possible to get their name and their music out there.
How was the music scene in New Jersey when you guys were coming up?
It was pretty huge. I mean,
there's this huge, this kind of, it kind of moves in waves from like one state to the next. You know, like Jersey in like the late '90s was pretty big, and then it moved to Long Island, and now I think it's coming back to Jersey.
I think it's pretty much now like the whole tri-state area.
Tri-state, yeah.
It's like, you know, like you got Long Island and New York City and New Jersey and Philadelphia and just kind of all the, you know, even upstate New York, there's all these bands coming out of there now. And when we were coming up, it was just starting to be more than Jersey. It was, you heard about bands from Long Island coming up. There was a lot of bands trying new things. There was a lot of bands kind of sounded the same. I think more bands sounded the same, and I think what made certain bands easier for them to break out of the scene is if they were different at all. And we really didn't fit in very early on in the local Jersey scene, which was cool to us.
Yeah.
And you know, and you could always tell who was coming to see us because it was like the 2 kids that didn't look like anybody else at the show. They had no idea what a scene was, and they just, you know, heard about us probably from the internet, and it was always like the loner kids, and they were always alone.
Was the scene grueling for you guys in the beginning?
It wasn't grueling. Like, in fact, from our very first show on, it was pretty much until there started to be a buzz. It was, you know, people like loved us, and then, you know, everybody started saying, "Oh, you got to see this band, you got to see this band," and it's very cool to not like what everybody else likes. So there was never an anti-My Chem thing in Jersey, but
We kind of had a lot of support from some of the bands that are still prominent from New Jersey. You know what I'm saying? Like Thursday,
Yeah.
and Midtown really like helped us out when we were like just starting out in New Jersey, which is cool because they kind of helped get our name out. You know.
it was what was cool about, you know, those bands admiring us and helping us was they accepted us as one of them, and these were huge bands, and we were this baby kind of VFW hall band, and they had already accepted us as one of them, and it was just really cool to be part of that ilk, you know. It was great.
They believed in themselves, they believed in the record that they made, they believed in their sound, they all, you know, quit their jobs, some dropped out of college, to be able to dedicate themselves to the open road, the rock and roll dream, as it were. During the Bullets touring cycle, guitarist Frank Iero even famously got a scorpion tattoo really high up on his neck so that he pretty much couldn't get a job, a real job, even if he wanted to. Nowadays, tattoos are obviously a bit more accepted in society and won't necessarily stop you from getting most jobs, but, you know, back in 2002, 20 years ago, a giant scorpion really high up on your neck, you know, quite visible, was pretty much considered a total job stopper, you know what I mean? So he was committed to the band, and even though the boys were totally broke, they were roughing it out and genuinely paying their dues, you know, you get the idea. And like I already covered, you know, they were touring with bands in the scene at the time like North Star, The Movie Life, Under Oath, A Static Lullaby, etc., etc. So during the touring cycle for Bullets, people began to notice MCR's fresh, new, unique sound as they really stood out from the crowd amongst the burgeoning emo and screamo, post-hardcore, whatever, scene surrounding them. MCR certainly was not a generic band. They were captivating and unique as hell, and buzz started growing in massive increments.
I
mean, we've watched you guys, like, the progression of your audience from, like, the Loop Lounge to, like, selling out this place, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen you guys in, like, Kansas City. Like, I've seen you guys, like, you know, your fan base grow. Like, how do you feel about that?
I mean,
like, how quick you guys' fan bases grow?
It's crazy and amazing and beautiful and all this, you know, it's what every band wants, you know, I mean, like, more than anything, you know, because certain bands are motivated by money, others by popularity, or motivated by neither, but, like, that's one thing that everybody wants, is, like, to be able to, in 1 year's time, last year we played a basement in New Brunswick, and, you know, this year it's this, last Halloween, you know, I mean, it's just crazy, it's just an amazing thing.
By the end of 2003, the end of the touring cycle for the first record, they started landing tours with bigger and bigger bands in the scene, like Avenged Sevenfold, The Used, Poison the Well, Thrice, etc. And around this time, they even inked a deal with a major record label, Reprise Records, which was a huge deal, obviously. So them signing with Reprise Records has always been pretty interesting to me, considering Reprise was never really the home for any other, like, emo or scene bands quite like MCR, even during the peak of the emo explosion in, you know, the mid-2000s. Reprise Records, some fun facts, was actually a label founded by Frank Sinatra, believe it or not, back in 1960, and the original artists signed to Reprise back in the day were people like Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Bing Crosby. Throughout the years, people like Neil Young, Jimi Hendrix, Captain Beefheart, and Fleetwood Mac have all been signed to the label. More recent Reprise signees include artists like Green Day, Michael Bublé, The Deftones, and Disturbed. So obviously some real rock and roll musical greats have been signed to Reprise. It has quite the historical, you know, musical lineage. So the fact that Reprise Records decided to take a chance on a little emo horror punk band from Jersey called My Chemical Romance says a lot about how, you know, MCR really stood out from the emo scene pack and were viewed pretty much from the get-go as a potentially massive and great rock and roll band, you know what I'm saying? Signing to Reprise Records was very, very legitimate and speaks to MCR's true legitimacy as a band, but more on that later.
You guys started signed to a bigger label?
Yeah, we signed a Reprise.
I know you guys have been on tour for a really long time, and you're going to be on tour for another really long time. I don't know if you guys have any, like, stories from tour, like, I don't know, maybe if you go to strip clubs or anything while you're on the road.
Yeah, there's really not any stories because as far as the stuff like that, we're not like a Motley Crue-ish type band like that.
Do you want to be like a Motley Crue type band? Are you heading in that direction?
I think we want to play a lot of video games and collect a lot of toys.
Yeah, we wanna roll up Dungeons and Dragons characters.
That's what we really want to play Dungeons and Dragons really bad, and we can't get a group together. I mean, you would think that you have 7, 8. Well, we have 9 in the van now. Yeah. Guys, you can get a really good game going, but not everybody's into Dungeons and Dragons, you know.
Let's just get this together. All right. First off, 3 members like Dungeons and Dragons.
Are you one of them? Are you one of them?
I watched the cartoon when I was young, and then that's about it. But no, I don't go on quests. That's more of a Gerard thing.
I paint little orcs. That's really weird, especially for like 27-year-old. I have a Hobbit sword.
Now, do you guys watch porn?
I mean, like, Ray watches it too.
Ray loves porn.
Ray, we like porn. I mean, porn's cool.
What about you? You're not off the hook. Do you watch porn?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't. Who doesn't like porn though? I mean, you know.
So in October of 2003, the band entered a recording studio with producer Howard Benson to officially record their second full-length record, their major label debut, with recording sessions lasting until February of 2004, right smack dab in the dead of winter. The producer that they went in with, Howard Benson, had a pretty impressive repertoire of albums and artists that he had previously worked on. Howard Benson got his start producing records for classic punk rock band TSOL, including recording their 1986 album Revenge, as well as their 1987 album called Hit and Run. In the 90s, he worked with freaking Motorhead on several of their albums. He also produced an album for Ice-T's hardcore band Body Count, very freaking cool. He also did some albums with Christian metal band POD. The closest thing that Howard Benson had worked on in relation to the, Warped Tour world, so to speak, that MCR were a part of prior to recording MCR was legendary ska punk act Less Than Jake's classic 1998 record Hello Rockview. Howard Benson also produced a ton of other, records as well. But again, much like signing to Reprise Records, MCR, despite coming from the emo Warped Tour screamo post-hardcore world initially, were reaching to outside influences and outside partners outside of, the emo genre, so to speak, to help them make their music. I mean, Howard Benson, this guy worked with freaking Motorhead, you know what I mean? They were in good hands during this recording process. Some real rock and roll shit. So, following the band's studio time in winter of 2003 into early 2004, the band spent early 2004 on the road. The band then spent that summer on the Vans Warped Tour of 2004, playing to some of their biggest audiences yet. And this right here, my friends, is where the bubble really started bursting for MCR.
The band that came out from one of our, development stages this year that I really think is going to be big, My Chemical Romance.
He came up to me and slapped me on the ass. You know what he said to me? This is what he said. Oh, baby, it was the sound. Took the train and I knew my ways. Then I shot that buzz.
Playing Warped Tour isn't like playing shows, it's more, I don't know, it's like being a gypsy and having
Definitely like being a
big
gypsy
experience.
or a carny.
Yeah.
You gotta prove yourself.
Yeah,
on work.
definitely.
From the very first day, if you didn't think that before, if you thought like, we're gonna show up, it's gonna be awesome, like we're just gonna totally kick butt and everybody's gonna love us, like that first day is a really big wake-up call and you're like, whoa, we have a lot to prove. You feel like a brand new band in a way.
These guys are really, from the heart and soul, really good people. So if I can give them a chance this next year, it's pretty cool.
It was amidst this summer tour on June 8th of 2004 to be exact, when MCR released their highly anticipated sophomore full-length record, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, on major label Reprise Records.
The title, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, was conceived right after, I think before we didn't finish the first record. We're very much like a plan-ahead type band, and I'd always liked the sound of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge as the title of the second record. I kind of always have it in my head in a way, like, I knew I wanted the first record to be called I Brought You My Boots, You Brought Me a Love, and the second one should be called this, and because it all fits together in some weird cosmic way. It's like, yeah, exactly. I think the most important song to me, especially Mikie on the record, is Helena, because it's about our grandmother who passed away. But I think Prison is the one that it really makes that record different. I think if the record didn't have that track, there's risks that we take in every song. How they no 2 songs sound alike, but that's the one track that's like, wow, those guys went there, And that's our dirty cabaret song. Yeah, like who would have thought a rock band could pull off a cabaret song? So I did.
The first song that we wrote for this record, we wrote right after the first record was done. And we're like, oh man, we should have put that on the first record. And then, we kind of wrote a little bit on the road. We had some time off, we wrote at home, and then we wrote in LA where we were recording the record. So it kind of like, the songs took on a journey. And I think that's why when you listen to the record, you kind of feel like you're going from place to place. And I think that's why the songs are so different.
Now, it's always somewhat of a, make it or break it situation when an indie band signs to a major label backed with the buzz of the underground music scene and, suddenly has the potential to tip over into mainstream success, right? In fact, a lot of times it fails. We've seen it time and time again. A smaller band signs to a big label, delivers an album that is, perhaps a purposeful attempt at a bigger, more accessible, more commercial sound, and for whatever reason it flops in the mainstream world and fails to make a bigger impact outside of the underground music scene. This situation often leaves bands in a pretty tricky spot too, because especially back in the 2000s, snarky fans would pretty much constantly rip on bands for being sellouts. That was the big bad word in the 2000s, being a sellout, if a band started achieving greater success or if they made really any money at all from their art, it was, they were sellouts and it was bad. So, if the major label record failed to make waves in the mainstream, the band would also have risked alienating a lot of their original fan base by signing to a major label and trying to refine their sound in the first place. It's very difficult for a band to correct course after something like that, and that kind of situation would often cause most bands to just break up, So, despite all of the buzz, if you really think about it, MCR, despite how great they were really under a lot of pressure when it came to delivering their major label debut back in 2004 and, have it be a success and work in their favor. Fortunately, as you probably all can guess, MCR were able to narrowly avoid this aforementioned twist of rock and roll fate. And here on Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, they were able to musically stick to their guns and, stick to their original message and ethos as a band and please those old school fans with a great new record that wasn't too squeaky clean or commercial, was still true to themselves, while simultaneously making a record that was a lot more accessible to a wider audience and was a lot more smoothed out and refined than their previous record, and have it achieve a level of mainstream success which these 5 Jersey boys definitely never thought was possible. According to the band's infamous 2006 documentary DVD called Life on the Murder Scene, the band's manager, Brian Schechter, had estimated that the record would sell around 3,000 copies within its first week. That was his estimate. Much to his and the band's and the label's surprise, the record ended up selling 11,000 copies in its first week, and interestingly enough, apparently the first day it was released, it actually sold twice as many copies as their first record Bullets had sold in its entire lifespan. It was a shock, and it was also a pleasant surprise, and as the band kept promoting this new record throughout the rest of 04 and into 05, the record kept flying off the shelves and reaching new unbelievable sales heights, which quelled any nervousness the band or the band's team had about this record potentially flopping or becoming somewhat of a forgotten sophomore slump, as, is what happens to a lot of bands, unfortunately. So as the record as a whole was selling better than the band had expected while they were out performing for large crowds promoting the record on that summer's Warped Tour, the album's first single, entitled I'm Not Okay, I Promise, which singer Gerard Way described as a self-help pop song, was released to radio on September 28th of 2004. Things were kind of slow at first, but the song began picking up major steam and entered the Billboard Hot 100 in February of 2005, where it stayed on the chart for 6 weeks and peaked at number 86, and the music video stayed in regular rotation on MTV. The next single, Helena, was released to radio on March 8th of 2005, and this single found even greater success. It entered the Billboard Hot 100 in July of 2005 and stayed on that chart for a whopping 16 weeks, where it peaked at number 33, and that music video also stayed in regular rotation on MTV. This made Helena and I'm Not Okay certified mainstream radio smash hits by the summer of 2005, and on August 31st of 2005, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge was officially certified platinum with sales of 1 million copies sold. Crazy.
Well, you might find this hard to believe, but these guys graduated high school only 4 years ago. Already they have 2 albums and a Warped Tour behind them. Their latest is called Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge with the song Helena. From flooded New Jersey, here is My Chemical Romance.
again and again. So far from
MCR mania had officially taken hold and swept the nation as well as the world, and My Chemical Romance's brand of unique, catchy, anthemic emo punk rock had made its mark, propelling them to mainstream household name status, carrying the torch at the forefront of the burgeoning emo pop movement by the end of summer of '05, just a little over a year after the initial release of the album. Defying all the odds stacked against them, the band was making history, and like I've said, they were accomplishing goals that were definitely way beyond their wildest dreams, like when they started, you know? They were officially taking over the world. So, 3 cheers for Sweet Revenge, my friends. What exactly made this album so special, and how did this album perfectly toe the line between being a mainstream major label smash success as well as simultaneously being somewhat of a cult classic, arguably the Nevermind of a fringe movement in the 2000s? Emo, a movement which served as a refuge for the uncool and the unwanted. The kids in high school who got picked last for gym class and got beaten up and ridiculed by the jocks. Kids who felt invisible and trapped in the dark like a horrible, unfair life epidemic, if you will.
Well, tonight we have a warning about a teen phenomenon that involves, it sounds weird, self-mutilation and suicide.
And in a state where the teen suicide rate is already at an all-time high, we think this is a very important report that every parent should see. ABC4's Reed Cowan, now with us, has a special report for parents about the so-called emo culture. Reed, what is emo?
Well, Barb, this is something that has come out of the internet and into music and the lives of Utah teens. Emo is found in books, magazines, even the hit movie Spider-Man 3. Well, parents, there are some dangerous elements to this culture psychologists say you need to know about. And we want to warn you that some of what you are about to see is created by teens and maybe just a little bit disturbing.
Where's your heart?
It is sadness. No. It's rage. It is pain. Emo culture expressed through music, imagery, and fashion.
As I revisit the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge album as an adult, I'm blown away by how unique this record is. I mean, musically speaking, you couldn't just call this album pop punk or post-hardcore or even just emo and, like, call it a day.
Well, alright! We came to get down, to get down, to get down, to get down. Let me hear you say hey. Let me hear you say ho. Let me hear you say go. Go, 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 go. Here we go now. In the middle of a gunfight.
The amalgamation of influences on this thing, from moody, depressive, gothic alternative rock like The Smiths and The Cure, to its undeniable classic punk rock edge, calling back to bands like The Misfits or Black Flag, which serves as a gritty, rebellious, in-your-face undercurrent throughout the whole record, to even aspects of the record that flirt with an influence, from 70s anthemic arena rock like Queen, and even glimpses of ironic interpretations of 80s hair metal in there too. This record is dark, haunting, gritty, and angry, while at the same time anthemic and catchy, and at times playful and jovial enough to still be fun and feel like a warm hug whenever you listen to it, you know? It's like Gerard Way is giving the awkward 12-year-old outcasted misfit version of myself a big giant hug every time I put this album on, even now at age 25, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of in this wave, this forefront of a wave of music that's happening right now, and a lot of people are calling it new metal, a lot of people are calling it emo. What is your whole interpretation of that?
I think labeling is a way of people very easily categorize things, and I feel that they feel they need to do it. We've always considered ourselves a rock and roll band, even from beginning. Probably in the start more of a punk rock band, and this time with this record we've really tried to step it into more of an arena rock sound, while still keeping that aggression of the punk rock. It's really hard to say for us. I've been calling it neo-death because it's so dark. It's this new kind of death rock. And that's just generally what I've been calling really violent pop music, stuff like that.
But at the same time, Mikey, you guys are very melodic, like you're saying, violent pop music. You know, you're very melodic. Where does that come from?
I think that, like, the whole, like, you know, this optimistic kind of pop music, I mean, what me and Gerard would listen to when we were younger is kind of like more like kind of ironic pop, like The Smiths and Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
And bands like that were kind of like, we're writing these extremely happy sounding songs, but the message inside is just really bleak. And I mean, that's how we kind of got our thing, you know, like we just love that. It's like tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
it's really
a lot
cool.
of black humor in our music, and I think that's what makes the pop so unpop about it, you know, but it still sounds great to us. It's really catchy. We love catchy stuff.
Again, as far as their sound, it would be lazy and frankly incorrect to just write this album off as Warped Tour, you know? It's bigger than Warped Tour. It's bigger than just an angsty teenage record. What MCR created here on 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge is a sound and a style that was undeniably their own, a truly special contribution to rock and roll history as a whole. MCR's ability to create a record with a sound that was so brazenly unique and, you know, special and one of a kind, and not to mention simply just great songs, not a moment of filler on this album, caused them to be able to stand out from the pack and garner so much attention and make such a big impact in not only the underground world, but also the mainstream music world, and not only become the flagship band for emo, but simultaneously transcend your normal definition of emo, you know what I mean? I believe that that's what the greats are able to do in any genre, become the flagship band for that genre, but also transcend it by creating something universal and timeless, you know, so that you don't have to be emo or deep into the world of emo to be able to appreciate MCR or what they brought to the table on this album. And I think that's exactly what MCR did here on 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. And I have to say, if you're like me, you know, as a lot of us are that watch this channel, if you're somewhat of an obsessive connoisseur of the emo genre, sometimes these days, it feels like MCR can be a little bit overhyped, or at least talked about a little bit too much in a way, because they still do get so much attention in the world of, you know, modern day emo nostalgia movements like Emo Night and all of those emo nostalgia meme Instagram pages, you know what I mean? It's just like constant MCR were great. Helena, remember MCR? Like, I get it already. You know, they were great. Yeah, okay, we get it. Because, you know, there were so many other great bands in that movement. But, like I said, as I revisit this record in preparation for this video, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, there's a reason why they still get so much hype years and years after the fact. They were great. Whether you like it or not, they deserve the hype. The hype is not misguided. I'm happy that they are as beloved as they are, because this music that they made really was special and really deserves the accolades and the recognition in the world of rock history, honestly. Also, one thing I definitely can't fail to mention, the creative and artistic direction behind MCR, like in general, was absolutely incredible and totally unmatched at the time. As I had talked about in my last MCR video, all the MCR guys were super into like comic books and horror movies, and Gerard was even on the path to become either an illustrator or an animator or some sort of comic book writer before forming MCR. He obviously has done that after the fact as well, but he was, you know, before the band, he was always into that stuff. So the art direction for MCR was always something very important and integral to Gerard and the other guys, and my God, did they deliver. The album artwork, for example, was a painting that was actually done by Gerard Way, a painting which he called The Demolition Lovers, a reference to the song on their first album, Bullets, as well as the 2 Bonnie and Clyde-esque main characters who are represented in the storyline throughout 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
And Gerard, you helped work on some of the artwork.
Oh, yeah. I used to be a comic artist, so
nice.
I was actually a failed comic artist.
Yay! Oh, yay for failed comic artists. They never applaud me when I talk about it. I'm a fan of comics. Thank you very much.
Let's see some of the artwork. Let's check it.
Yeah, I think we have a
some of it
couple of stills here of the artwork. Are they on there? No, perhaps not. All right, that's cool. Yeah, you have the.
No, we got it.
Oh,
It's right there.
Sweet.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, there's
stuff.
the dead girl.
Oh, the dead girl's so
Everyone's
pretty.
happy.
She's a pretty dead girl.
It's very pleasant artwork.
All dead
on
girls are pretty.
Basically, my fallback plan, because I thought I was always going to be in a band, was to be a comic artist. It was like the worst fallback plan in the world, you know? Then when we had the band, I found I was able to actually do stuff, use my artwork again. I was pretty psyched about that. We all think about it like pretty cinematically, music. We think about it in a visual sense.
Speaking of cool concepts and unique artistic direction, I can't fail to mention one thing that really sticks out to me about MCR during this time is the incredibly iconic and legendary music videos which they made for the singles on 3 Cheers.
The video is we're in prep school and we're apparently the outcasts.
We're like these kids that are getting picked on in this prep school. We get fed up and we go after them with croquet mallets.
We were getting treatments, none of them really stuck with us, and this treatment came in.
The concept came from Mark. There was a very early idea that the band had come up with where we were going to do it at a pep rally in a high school. And like we thought like it had been done quite a bit. Then Mark came up with this really good idea to do a video that was for like this fake movie.
Hey guys, my name is Mark Webb. We're on the set of the video for My Chemical Romance, I'm Not Okay. As you can see, we're at a high school here in Los Angeles. The idea of the video is it's a movie trailer for a movie that we've made up. Today we're going to go through a bunch of little vignettes like you see in any sort of teen movie. It's like a teen movie gone bad.
I did a really creepy scene, like where I'm looking at a girl and I like try to impress her by spinning around in a chair, which is actually something that I think I came close to doing in high school. And then like I ate a crayon and now I have crayon taste in my mouth, and it's kind of funny though. It's cool.
When you bite it, like do it like in a sexual way, right? You're like, like in Top Gun when Iceman goes, "That's right, I am dangerous," like that.
When I was in junior high, I tried to impress a girl by putting like a piece of Runt's candy in my nose and like pretending that it was like a booger. And then the thing just ended up getting stuck in my nose and I had to go to the nurse for her to pull it out.
The name of the song that we're doing the video for is Helena, and we're at a church in rainy Los Angeles. I thought it was going to be warmer than Jersey here, but it's not.
The first thing we're doing here today is the pallbearing sequence, which is where Helena is being escorted to her final resting place. My Chemical Romance walks out with a casket, and so the pallbearers are, of course, My Chemical Romance. You can see Ray, Frank, Mikey, Bob, and Gerard. They're just walking down the steps here, which are right out here, and they're going to be escorted by a phalanx of dancers.
It's going to be pretty fun. It's very celebratory, yet somber. The coffin was a very deceptive thing. At first, you feel like this is nothing. I mean, it doesn't have a body in it, but you're like, this is nothing, And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it feels like you're holding like a coffee table by yourself. I think certain people just let go at certain
points. If you keep a good eye, you'll notice that Frank is too short to actually even carry them.
I hear it's heavy. I'm about 4'9", so when they lift the coffin, it's actually above my head, and I don't actually get to lift it. I'm just touching it.
So he was just kind of like walking underneath. He was no help at all. And I think that's why me and Gerard feel the brunt of the pain because we're up front.
And the front's
Thanks, Frank.
Very, very meaningful, very cool. Some of the best videos from this era. Really some of the, these 3 videos are like some of the best videos from the 2000s, I think, of any genre, really, that I can think of. Anyways, my point being, very few bands from this era went as above and beyond with their creativity, their unique art direction, as much as MCR did, from the music to the artwork to the music videos, even to the look of the bands themselves, their outfits, their makeup. If you look at all their promo shots and everything, they were really on point with just everything about the band fitting their aesthetic perfectly. Everything about their music and vision and message, it all tied together and it all made sense, which is a very hard thing to do. What they were doing, it was beyond just simple ideas of branding and marketing. You know, it was all meaningful, it was all totally unique, totally genuine, something that only the 5 MCR guys could pull off. You know what I mean? You couldn't really rip them off because they just, you know, there was a lot of like makeup and eyeliner going on in the scene at the time, but something about the way that MCR did it was just so much more genuine. I felt like so much more original than all the other bands who did it just as a trend. Like, it wasn't just conforming to a trend for MCR. It was like, it was them, you know, they were doing it really, really genuinely.
What inspired the song? It's not a fashion statement. It's a fucking death wish.
Well, basically, what inspired it is a number of things. It was the first song we wrote for this record. It encompassed the whole plot line in one song. It was kind of, you know, so we always knew that song no matter what was going to be on the record. It was kind of a way of us, the title was a way of us saying, like, this is not like a look. This is not some fashion we're trying to sell you. This is what we do. This is who we are. This is how we live. And this is what we're here to say. And so that song title was always, like, you know, really cool to me. I always loved that one. And because there was a lot of fashion going on at that point, and still to this day, where it was kind of almost to the point where it was like poser-like, where it was like, if you threw on a black T-shirt and some eyeliner or something, that all of a sudden made you this subgenre, and it would sell you records, you know.
Yeah.
And you see it even now.
And as a whole, as just the band MCR, they really were a fucking force to be reckoned with. A band who were not only destined to make a mark, not only in the scene, not only on the radio, but they were destined to make a mark in rock and roll history as a whole. They were destined to make a mark in rock and roll history, and they deserved to make a mark in rock and roll history. And they fucking did, you know, they fucking did it here on 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. In spring of '05, some more fun facts, the band actually collaborated with their friends in The Used, amazing band, you all know The Used. They collaborated on an infamous cover of Queen and David Bowie's classic song, Under Pressure. It's almost like MCR were the Queen of this era, and maybe Burt McCracken was the Bowie, I don't know. Maybe that was the idea. This cover also became somewhat of a hit and cracked the Billboard Hot 100 as well, staying on that chart for 3 weeks and peaking at number 41 in spring of '05. MCR also had another hit come January of '06 when The Ghost of You cracked the Billboard Hot 100 as well, spending 1 week on the chart at number 84. So singles upon singles, hits upon hits, the band were killing it. The band were also part of some insanely huge and, you know, legendary tour packages throughout the 3 Cheers era as well. Like I said, the band were on Warped Tour in summer of '04 when the record got released. After that, from there, they spent fall of 2004 on the Nintendo Fusion Tour. Y'all remember the Nintendo Fusion Tour? That happened every year for a while, which was headlined by Story of the Year, which is really funny to me because, you know, the band Story of the Year headlining the Nintendo Fusion Tour is the most 2004 thing I have ever heard of in my life, you know what I'm saying? If you could condense the year 2004 into one occurrence, it's Story of the Year headlining the Nintendo Fusion Tour. At any rate, openers on that tour were Lost Prophets, My Chemical Romance, and Letter Kills with Anne Boleyn and Autopilot Off also joining on select dates.
We got on the Nintendo Fusion Tour because we were basically invited to come and play. And I think it was a culmination of Nintendo and Story of the Year and their management all coming together and, you know, wanting us to play this tour. So we're big video game fans, so we said why not, you know. And we had toured with Story of the Year on Warped Tour and another tour with The Used, so we had already known them and Lost Prophets and Letter Kills from various tours, so we thought it'd be cool. I don't know how we feel about clashing with the Nintendo image. I think the closest Nintendo thing we come close to is probably Resident Evil. I mean, and which just happens to be my favorite game. But yeah, it was really weird when they asked us. We were like, they know what the lyrics are like, right? And but they really just wanted bands they liked on it, and they really didn't care too much about like what that band, as far as image-wise, or what they projected. There's some times where it feels awkward, to be a really dark band on a video game tour. But I mean, like I said, what we are on stage is not what we are off, and we always like playing video games, so it seemed really natural to us.
Next, the band spent early 2005 on the legendary Taste of Chaos tour.
Hey, we're My Chemical Romance, and we're on the Taste of Chaos tour.
And get a load of this lineup. In order, it went Under Oath first, then Kill Switch Engage, heavy, then Senses Fail. Weird to me that Senses Fail aren't I feel like Senses Fail should be first, but whatever. Then My Chemical Romance, then the headlining act, The Used. Bro, I would have lost my mind at that shit.
The first day I woke up, I came out in my pajamas, and it was probably one of the coolest feelings in a long time. I ran into people all the way to soundcheck, and I was so excited, like people from Warped Tour that work on this tour as well, who we're going to see in the summer, and we saw all last summer, and just all the bands. We toured with every one of these bands except for Killswitch, and even those dudes I've watched twice live before touring with them, so it was very cool, and I met them, so.
Next, in spring of 2005, if that wasn't enough for you, get this. They did some dates opening for freaking Green Day on the freaking American Idiot tour. Holy shit, talk about legendary. The boys were graduating into the big leagues now. Arenas. Straight into Warped Tour 2005, which is right when the record was blowing up and going platinum. They were on this tour alongside Fall Out Boy, and from first to last, pretty much every legendary band in the scene played at Warped Tour 2005, Then fall of 2005, my god, these guys were staying busy. Fall of 2005, it was time for their headlining tour. I think this might have been their first ever headliner, actually, aptly titled the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge tour, which included openers Alkaline Trio and Reggie in the Full Effect. Pretty cool. November of 2005, the band did some dates in the UK alongside spastic metalcore heroes and one of my favorite bands, Every Time I Die, which is pretty badass. I love Every Time I Die. Y'all probably know this by now. MCR then closed out 2005 in December of that year, hopping right back onto some dates with Green Day yet again, as well as Jimmy Eat World in Australia for the final leg of the American Idiot World Tour. And there you have it. That wrapped up the official touring cycle on the legendary 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge album. That was it. After that, starting in 2006, MCR began work on their next full-length record. I wonder if that record was any good. Anyone know anything about that record? No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. But yeah, there you have it, man. That was the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge era. Great record, MCR. Great era, great band. Thank you all for watching this video. It has been me, your man, the Cozy Representative. Hope y'all are doing well in February, the month of love. And yeah, peace out, y'all. I will catch you next time right here on the Cozy Representative. Have a good night. Peace and love. Peace out. Vampires will never hurt you. Goodbye.